Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Today, we are talking with Joe and Brad from the Fight Bible. If you're not familiar with these guys,
Perfect.
well, they're back on YouTube with an awesome new channel, The Fight Bible. Go check them out. Links in the description below, but let's get to having a conversation. First of all, with the most pertinent topic Brad brought up right before this podcast began. How's the weather over here in Shanghai? It's okay. All right, now on to more pressing subjects. How you guys doing?
Oh, that was a great answer.
That was a great start.
Yeah. Amazing.
But
right.
yeah.
How do you want to start then, Joe? I've got loads of questions to ask him.
Yeah,
so
well, let's just go for questions.
you go first then, Sunshine.
So,
You guys came prepared with questions? Oh my.
Oh, we
All
got,
right,
mate,
let's-
I've been
not
thinking
really.
about questions all day.
it's more just like topics rather than questions.
Sure.
So when
Let's get after it.
So you started your YouTube channel years ago, didn't you? You said it was a heritage channel, and you were just
Yeah.
uploading training videos, and then it kind of popped when you joined the fight against Master Wong. Was that right?
No, actually, before that,
Was it really?
it was a video I made in response to Marie Claire, you know, the women's online magazine.
Oh, yes,
They
yeah,
put out
bad
a self-defense
self-defense,
video.
yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
this just terrible self-defense video where they hired this fitness instructor to do some really goofy moves. We decided to try it out in the gym, see what would really happen if you offered even mild resistance. You know, if you're not cooperating like the guy in the video was, and you know, maybe like 12 people watched it, but then one day I went to my YouTube channel and suddenly it had like 10,000 views, then 100,000 views, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then a friend of mine sent me a link to Joe Rogan's On It website, and apparently he thought it was hilarious and decided to share it, and suddenly my subscribers went from like 1,000, which they'd been for 14 years, up to 10,000, then 20,000, then 30,000, then
Is this the
60,000.
Joe Rogan podcast one?
Yeah.
though? Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, it's the Joe Rogan effect, man. Like, a lot of people think it was Master Wong because that video did get a lot of traction, it got a lot of views, but man, Joe Rogan set the ball in motion. So a lot of people ask me, like, Ramsey, how do I get a popular YouTube channel? I'm like, luck.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan.
Basically.
Something which Joe Rogan watches. Yeah, that's about it.
I mean, we were
Yeah,
doing well
I mean,
at one
you
point.
can-
and then
Yeah.
some people got a bit butthurt.
They
I'm
got
not gonna.
offended.
I don't know who it was. I mean, we got ideas. We've seen comments, people openly saying they mass reported us and stuff because they didn't agree with the fact that we criticised their, their love of their life, their traditional martial arts as such, or they said that we were bullying Master Wong. But I mean, in terms of bullying, I mean, I don't think teasing someone, being friendly and actually talking quite highly of them sometimes is bullying. Just calling out his dribble sometimes.
Yeah, we didn't attack him.
You guys were so much more gracious to Master Wong than I was. I just came out and flat out said, he's wrong. And you guys were like, we love Master Wong. He's hilarious. He's got talent. And, you know, we're just going to point out a couple of things he could do better. I mean, it was much more forgiving, I think, in many
Yeah,
ways
we
than
did try.
how
We
I
got
came
called
at him.
racist as well.
We did.
You got
Well,
called
I got
racist.
called racist for doing a Master Wong impression.
Yeah, because I said one sunny day in the emperor. I said that, and they said
But-
I was racist. What was it?
But yeah, man, it's
It's funny.
It's funny the type of people you see on YouTube. You see them all over the world. Like, I was listening to a conversation that one of the coaches at my gym, one of the Chinese coaches, he has some online videos of him training and some of his fights. He's a pro fighter. You know, he's a good fighter. And he was talking about the feedback he gets from casual people. They don't train at all, or they can't train in like Wing Chun or something like that. And they send him so much hate mail, and they say the exact same things in Chinese that people are saying in the YouTube comments. Well, my Krav Maga coach told me that's not the way, and you're wrong, and I'm right. You know, you heard this whole thing.
Well, I got in an argument with someone once. Right, can you see my hand there, Claire? I punch with these two knuckles. Right, I'm trying to get a good camera angle for you. These two knuckles. Right,
Yeah.
I've always punch with them. Someone argued you should always punch this way with these three, and apparently Bruce Lee said that, so it must be, you know, the word of God. I mean, that's why it's not like the Bruce Lee Bible on how to punch. using just like a sort of a hip movement. But if you look at that, these two bones here, Ramsey, are very weak. These two are very weak, but they're stronger than these two very, very weak ones. So I would always choose to hit. My knuckles have developed over the years, so they're both like breeze blocks now. But stuff like that, and they would argue, and they'd use a Bruce Lee movie as a reference, or they'd say, well, my coach has done nothing in his life, teaches at a school hall and has to rent that out for £12.50 an hour, knows better than you do, that's trained all over the world and learned off the best coaches. But what do I know, eh?
Yeah, man, if you want to start a giant argument in the comment section of a YouTube video, just make a video about the difference between 2-knuckle contact and 3-knuckle contact, and you can be as gracious as you want to be. You can take no stand whatsoever, and just pointing out the fact that there's a difference between 2-knuckle and 3-knuckle contact, the comment section will explode.
Yeah.
Very aggressively too.
The thing is, the physiological, sort of like the actual data of how the skeleton works shows that it's these two which are the strongest bones. Especially if you do like the point style punch, in the way that these two bones directly link up with the radius and the ulna of your arm. So any punch has essentially stronger bones directly behind it. If you punch with these two, the bones, the way they position, they shoot off and they don't directly align up with the radius and the ulna, which is why you get a lot of small fractures in your wrist and in your fingers.
Kinetic is the word Joe wants to look for.
Yeah.
Kinetic.
Kinetic
all of this
power.
in line, solid.
Same reason why when you throw a hook punch, you get your elbow up. So you put it's not this, which has nothing behind it, it's that, which has your weight of your body behind it. It's something so simple, but yeah, people want to believe what they want to believe, I guess. And they won't
and the thing about 3-knuckle contact, which is, it's fascinating, but it's often taught wrong by the people who espouse it, is that it's not so much the knuckles making contact in these arts like Wing Chun as they are supposed to be taught, or even the way Jack Dempsey taught 3-knuckle contact back in 1920. It's the idea of soft weapons against hard targets versus hard weapons against soft targets. So if you look at the two big knuckles, these are hard weapons. Use them against soft targets, if we're talking about bare knuckle fighting anyway. So punching like here, punching in the nose, punching in the eyes, punching in the soft parts of the face, that's ideal. With this, it's more akin to, and not just the knuckles, but the whole part of the finger. This is a soft weapon, not a hard one. So if you look at somebody who's actually good at Wing Chun, and there's so many bad ones, I have met a couple of guys who are actually pretty decent at Wing Chun over here in China. One of them was actually from Germany. And when I saw him doing chain punches for the first time, he's essentially slapping with the front of his hand, not just the knuckles, but the whole front of the hand, the bottom 3 fingers. And it was more like rapid fire framing than punching, not so much to do damage, but to change position, which is barely ever taught. It's a weird thing. It's one of those things you'd have to see, but when people start talking about punching like this is the same as that's just blatantly not true at all. No. Like 2-knuckle contact is exclusively to cause damage, whereas 3-knuckle contact has it's got a very different objective.
For a sport application.
Anyway, that's me nerding out on traditional martial arts for a bit, but yeah.
For a sport application,
totally different objectives.
For a sport application like what we all train, obviously you want to make these knuckles as hard as you can because you are repeatedly hitting someone. A normal person that does self-defense, they don't need to condition their hands for that one time they get very unlucky and get in a fight. In that case, hit whatever knuckle you can, just make connection and get the hell out of there. But obviously if you are repeatedly punching and punching and punching for years and years and years, you want to make sure you're hitting with the right part.
There's just sorry to butt in. There's another one that kept coming up over and over again when we had Fight Perfect. You should not hit with the knuckles in street fights, right? Now before calm the fudge down. Right. They said, I see, calm down there. They said you shouldn't risk damaging your knuckles or breaking your hand in a street fight. The last thing on your mind should be, I could break my hand in a life or death situation. Surely you just want to hit him as hard as you can with your knuckle. Just do as much damage as possible. Get out of there. Afterwards, I broke my hand last night. Fighting off, a great big guy that was going to rape me with a knife. right. Just
I know,
reality
man.
is, yeah. But luckily,
people get so obsessed with this idea that you can get out of a fight undamaged, and it's possible, but it's not probable. Like,
Even
if you get into a fist fight, you will get punched. If you get into a knife fight, you will get stabbed. A gunfight, you will get shot. I mean, that's just how
that is the
reality works.
reality of it, exactly.
But
Well, I find it funny when you train with newbies and they say, "Oh, well, don't hurt me," and it's like, do you think that this is going to be a fun experience? Do you think that rolling isn't going to hurt? Do you think that getting punched isn't going to hurt? It's like you're training for the one time that something does go wrong, but you're so scared of damage that you're not even willing to train it lightly. Like you said, that the new guys that you're sparring with has taken them so long to
2 years.
Just not be scared of getting punched.
2 years. I've been training them for 2 years. They'd already been training a few years before that, but they've been doing so for instance, there's like two types of kickboxing. You got the one where they go and rent out a school hall and they do it as like a family. Oh, mum, dad, we're gonna go and do some like really soft self-defense kickboxing. Then you got the competition kickboxing clubs that are there to fight. Pardon me. I took two people from that soft background, that family style. I took them over and I've started training them to compete. And it took them 2 years. It was only until like 2 days ago that I said to Joe, they're finally now throwing without fear of being hit back, but trying to actually move, create angles, and actually do damage or trying to connect on their sparring partners. And it's quite a good moment as a coach. And like we were on about then, what were we just talking about a minute ago? I said about the path of least resistance. Damage and fights. I was talking to Joe the other day, and I was on the phone chewing his ear off 'cause I had some time to kill in the car, and, and I'd nothing better to do to ring Joe and kick the old bucket. And I was on about, even if you win a fight, punching someone and kicking someone damages you. It still hurts your hands. It hurts your shin. You can go into a fight, whoop the other guy's ass and still walk away with two swollen hands, bruised shins, bruised elbows. I've won fights, knocked guys out of an elbow, and I couldn't even extend my arm where it was so swollen the next day. And I don't know if you know what it is. You get the little bone squeeze out. Oh, it's disgusting. You get like a little spot and a little bit of bone pops out. Do you know what I mean? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man, that happens all the time. I'm sure you guys have had the experience of teaching new students, say, a mount escape. They say, what do you do if somebody gets on top and punches you? You start teaching them different mount escapes, to which they reply, well, what if you get punched? If you do that, they can punch you.
Question,
to which the answer is,
well,
yeah, if you don't do anything, you will get punched more. You will get punched to death if you don't try to escape. But yeah, everybody wants that solution with zero damage, and it's just not viable. But that is a really interesting point you brought up about that group that took 2 years essentially. I was having this discussion with a couple of my students the other day about hand fighting and trapping and transitioning into clinch fighting and whatnot. And these are a lot of techniques that are taught in many traditional Chinese martial arts like Wing Chun, Bagua Zhang, Tai Chi Chuan, etc., that people tend to laugh at today because there are so many people in these styles that just don't know how to fight. And all of these techniques are techniques that take place deep inside the pocket, like in that range. Now think about that. If you are scared of getting punched, how are you going to get inside the pocket?
You never will.
Well, especially with Wing Chun.
Yeah, you never will.
Yeah, exactly. Well, seeing as everything is
exactly
close range, it's never going to happen. It's to quote Icy Mike, I think he said something like, again, if you're punching and leaning back because you're so scared to make connection, you are automatically removing your own range from your own punch. So you have to be ballsy. You have to keep your head forward alone just to even make your punch reach. You see the guys in street fight videos lean back, trying to swat each other like flies.
Why Joe's on this conversation? What else do people do famously in street fights? When they make contact, what else do they do? It's really important that you both know it, but can you think of it? You just said then you got to get in close. To be able to get in close, what have you got to be able to do? You've got to be able to see your opponent. So what does everyone do in street fights, or most people when they first start? What do they do?
Close their eyes.
Close their eyes. And there's been a scientific study that shows boxers that keep their eyes open to the last second or the last millisecond are the ones that go on to win the fight. I've seen pictures of fighters like Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, where he's been hit in the face, his lips fall across his face, and his eyes are still on the target as he's hitting. Now that is what you want to aim for. Most people shy away, and they'll look, and then they open their eyes, and the guy's behind them. And you're like, well, hang on a minute. What sort of gypsy magic was that? A minute ago I was fighting you here, and now you're behind me. Like Sabrina Spellman. Boom, son. Gone.
Yeah, man, it's that animal instinct. It's a survival instinct to keep us alive and healthy. When danger comes at our face, we move away, close the eyes so nothing gets in. And, you know, it's a good survival instinct. We have it for a reason. But at the same time, if we want to be able to fight, we have to essentially replace that instinct. I mean, you guys know this. I'm preaching to the choir here. But we're doing this for the fans, right?
Well, when I was in America, have you ever heard of the quote, the expression, the saying, the path of least resistance? Have you heard of that? Everyone's heard of it, the path of least resistance. Yeah. Now, someone said to me, when you fight, you always want to take the path of least resistance, which makes total sense. Yeah, you want to get in there, finish him, and good. However, when you train, you can't train down the path of least resistance, because for all you know, I'm going to come in here, he's going to throw the overhand, I'm going to do a ninja block, Wing Chun throat strike, gouge the groin, double eye poke, and the fight's over. What if he blocks the first one? Path of least resistance, you've got to now go another path. Oh wait, but you've only trained to do this one sequence of path of least resistance. You're not fit enough. Now the other guy who's took the long, sluggy, rapey road of the resistance is going to smash your face in. I think you have to train for the worst possible outcome, but in your head, like you said, you have to think about the path of least resistance. Like you said, another thing as well, you said about teaching beginners about the mount escape. Well, you said about, but what about getting punched? It's worse when they're on top and you're showing them the mount escape, because then they go, can't I just punch you here? And you're like, yes, but you're going to give up position real quick, and I'm going to get on top of you, then I'll be in mount, and then like you said, I'll be punching you. But wait, I won't let you escape. And that can be a real ball ache, teaching people that. But you know where I'm coming from.
Yes. Oh, yes,
people
I've heard
like
all these
to
things.
Try and think that they're way more experienced than they actually are.
4,000%.
Yeah, well, I think you've heard this one, Ramsey, that people over-exaggerate their abilities by 4,000%. Which
I heard it's 9,000%, but yeah.
But if you go from...
How much? Say it again.
9,000%, I believe.
Is it 9,000%?
9,000.
Was that a Dragon Ball Z reference? Was that a Dragon Ball Z reference? Or you being serious?
I've never actually seen Dragon Ball Z. I don't even know what the show's about, to be honest.
Good for you. Good for you. Neither have I. Don't worry. It's just him. He likes it so much he got it tattooed on his body for the rest of his life.
I know a lot of my YouTube viewers love Japanese cartoons, and they hate it when I call them Japanese cartoons. I've reviewed some of the fight scenes from these Japanese cartoons, but I still have yet to see Dragon Ball Z. Actually, I did see a couple of minutes. When I lived in Argentina, that's the first time I ever saw Dragon Ball Z, because it didn't play on TV when I lived in the States. But I spent a couple of years in Buenos Aires, and everybody has their TV on at all hours. It's like a light bulb, basically, whether they're watching it or not. And I remember walking in this house, Dragon Ball Z is on TV, and there's a scene where these two characters, it's dubbed over in Spanish, and they're just staring at each other, and there's veins throbbing in their head, and they're talking about gathering their power or something like that. What is going on?
Like Master Wong.
Yeah, but it just goes on for some time, like, I don't know, 5 minutes of these two guys just staring at each other like they're going to fight, but they're not fighting. They're just staring in extreme close-ups. Anyway, I don't get it, but I'm guessing there's probably more to it than that, but that's all I saw.
Well, someone else who would disagree with you and probably would want to fight you for saying that. And I don't know how you get on against this guy in a real fight, because he can make his own chi balls.
Oh, yes.
I think we know who we're talking about.
Are you talking about a certain mutual friend of ours?
Tai Chi Tube.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Mate, he reckons he genuinely wants to kill Joe.
I find it hilarious.
I've read the
He
comments,
said, "No,
man.
Brad,
He
you're
issued
not the
so
top of
many
my list.
challenges to death
Joe's
matches
first."
and wants you to sign a waiver and like no rules.
Yeah,
man,
he said to me,
Oh, did you
if
see
you
all
can get
that?
the UK government to legalise groin strikes, then I'll fight you. It's like,
And eye gouges.
what are you on about, pal? It was just utter madness.
Oh man,
Absolutely
it reminded
crazy,
me
but it
of
shows how
this
deluded he
this
is. He's
student I
watched
had. He
some
came
TV
into
programs, he's
my
watched
gym
some
some
fights
time
and-
ago, and he believed that, I mean, he trained in some reality-based martial arts system or self-defense system, and I was teaching a lesson about, I don't know, like clinching and takedowns in a guard pass or something like that, and every step of the way he would say, but if you did that, then I would just kick you in the groin or poke you in the eyes or punch you in the throat. And this, he interrupted so many
What did he
times.
say? He said he'd punch you in the throat.
I lost my temper. I rarely lose my temper. I'm generally the same guy in real life I am on YouTube. But I just flipped and I said, all right, do it. And he's like, what? I'm like, do it. You know, try to punch me in the eyes or kick me in the groin or whatever. Let's go.
Love it.
And he's
That's-
like,
yeah,
okay.
That's the right attitude.
So I take him down, I pass his guard, I get on top and I choke him out. And the whole time he's flailing around and trying to poke or whatever, unsuccessfully because he doesn't know how to fight. But yeah, man.
That's funny.
That's the same story as the guy with the dirty fingernails at my club.
Oh, yeah.
I'm never going to forget the story. He had fudging dirty fingernails, and he'd done like some Japanese self-defense, anti-rape, karate, jiu-jitsu stuff. And he was like, we started rolling, and I was like, he's got dirty fingernails. This is stuff. I mean, this is how much time I had.
This is
This
how
how
you get
terrible.
staph
This
infection.
is how terrible he was at the sport. I had so much time I could judge his fingernails.
You have time to
and
see his
and
fingernails
cleanliness.
and notice,
And he
they're quite unkempt, aren't
tried
they?
to stick his dirty, greasy fingernails in my throat. I was like,
like
la. So I grabbed hold of the back of his wrist, I tensed up like a man, and I put him in a finger lock. It was like, la, and then I put him in the tightest guillotine ever.
Oh,
Just
man.
go to sleep.
I wish sometimes you could just reach into the YouTube comment section, grab the naysayers, and say, let's go live right now. Let's see what you got. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in right now.
It goes back to that famous quote. It's easy to be a 6'4" street fighting powerlifting god behind a keyboard.
Oh man, I got to
true.
tell you, about 14 years ago, when YouTube was brand new and the comment section was brand new, and trolling on the internet was a relatively new, unrefined art, there was this guy who went by the screen name White Eagle 00001. I still remember that name because he was just
The fact
trolling
that
my
you do,
channel big
he
time,
must have
going on.
really
Must have
got
ruined
in
your
there.
life.
He must have really got
If
in
you think Tai Chi Tube was bad, man, this guy took it up to a crazy level. He basically challenged me to a death fight over and over and went on about how I wouldn't face him, and he's a 17th degree black belt in every martial art, and he's a Navy SEAL and all that. Anyway, just talking out of his butt. And I got so sick of it one day, I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a video, going to get my friend Zach to pretend to be White Eagle 0001. He's going to come to the gym. We're going to have the death fight in my gym, with my friend acting as White Eagle. We're going to make it just silly and embarrassing. So I posted this video where, I throw one leg kick and he starts crying like a baby and limps out of the gym. and so I post that. The greatest response ever. This is the only time the trolls have ever been beaten on the internet, I believe. White Eagle says, guys, that's not me. Don't believe him. He's a liar. That's not really me. I'm not a nerd like that. I'm 6'4". I'm 300 pounds of solid muscle. Everybody in the comments
I'm a
like, no,
street
guy.
fighting god."
No, man, that's totally you. It's totally you. Stop kidding yourself. You got defeated. Own up to it.
That's great.
That's amazing. Oh, we should do that. Dress up as Tai Chi Tube. Put catch a rat, trim the rat's nutsack and put it on there. Whistles in the wind. And then get his girlfriend.
Oh, man.
Hire a really, really cheap hotel room. And
Yeah. With the air conditioning. That's how we knew he was in a hotel room in those videos, because he had an air conditioning thing above the, wasn't it? He had an air
Oh, yeah, because
conditioning
air
unit.
conditioners are
And he had a little
virtually
hotel room
non-existent in
TV
the
where you
UK.
got
Wow.
paid to watch Channel 1.
That's some excellent detective
was
work
so
there, my
bad.
friends. But yeah, man, it's that's the great thing about anonymous trolls. They think it's a power, not being able to see them, not knowing what they look like, not knowing their real name. but in this case, it was actually his great weakness.
Yeah, because you're like a wise man. You're like an unconvicted Ralph Harris. The best bit is they won't get that. That's the best bit about it. But no, what was the other? So there was a few things. All right. So do you teach strength and conditioning at your club?
I used to have a dedicated strength and conditioning class, like a public class that anybody could come to. Right now, I'm teaching strength and conditioning to a few fighters. For example, there's a fighter, Liu Li. She's a WBC boxing champion, currently working as her strength and conditioning coach. And a couple other more local guys you probably never heard of outside of China. But public classes, I offer some general advice. We do have a weight room in the gym. If my students come and pick my brain and say, hey, can you fix my squat and deadlift for them, I'll help them out. But right now, I'm not doing a public strength and conditioning class. But I'm a big advocate that everybody should do it, at least on their own.
I got very, very mixed opinions on strength and conditioning. I started off as a PT. That's what I done before fighting. I went to college to do sports and science and all that. I never had an injury until I'd done strength and conditioning. But also, the counter argument to that is, I didn't do strength. I got at a much higher level when I started doing strength and conditioning. That's why I done it. Because all of a sudden, I was going into fights. Guys were machines. Even the guys in the UFC, right, that don't look in good shape. They're freak athletes. They are strong. All of them are strong. All of them are fit. No one gets in the UFC apart from that WWE guy. What's his name?
Oh, God.
What's his name? What's that WWE
CM Punk?
Yes, yeah. No one gets in the UFC or gets a free pass to the UFC. They don't forget, they even brought someone in for CM Punk to fight, Mickey Gold. They brought someone in to fight, and he lost.
They didn't even use the same, the roster that was available. They
had to get someone in. He's gone on to do pretty well, I'm pretty sure, but everyone. So I had to do strength and conditioning. I did not enjoy it. When I was saying to Joe, when I first started, I could deadlift about 120 kilos. I remember when I first got 130 kilos, I put a post up on Facebook like, yes, future champion. I can deadlift. I can deadlift 1.5 times my body weight. And then by the time I was in the UFC, I was doing 200 kilo deadlifts. But I didn't look any different physically. I still looked like a fat turd. I didn't look any better.
Yeah.
The only time I was ripped was when I was there was a brief period when I was training with a strength and conditioning coach who ended up trying to become more than a strength and conditioning coach. The strength and conditioning coach, he has got his place. He is to make you as strong and as conditioned, hence the name, strength and conditioning, as possible, and get you prepared for a fight. Your boxing coach or your striking coach does your striking. Your jiu-jitsu groundwork does that, and your wrestling coach, and then your head coach monitors everything. You don't need one of those other coaches trying to teach a different discipline. Your boxing coach does not teach you how to knee. Yeah, that's what my strength and conditioning coach was doing. Luckily, we parted ways, but I will give it to him. I was in fantastic shape because I didn't touch a carb in a year. It was horrible, man. I love carbs.
Yeah, man, that's interesting. Like what the UFC is doing right now at the Performance Institute in Shanghai, and presumably also in Las Vegas. But it's something that I think most other major professional sports have already been doing for a very long time.
A hell of a long time.
Which is investing heavily into the science behind the sport.
Yeah, every professional
Whereas for the longest time, strength and conditioning, everything else about MMA, it was bro science. I mean, in a lot of gyms, it still is bro science.
Bro science.
I mean, yes, bro science.
My favorite science is like how you get bigger at deadlifts. Just go ask someone in the locker room. Bro science. Yeah. Did you say you had a performance institute in Shanghai, China?
Yes.
I know you do.
Yes, the
my
UFC opened the second performance institute in Shanghai. It opened...
You've been there?
When did it open? I have not yet. It is not open to the public.
Oh,
you have to be invited to go there.
Well, the UFC gym Shanghai could be. Have you got a UFC gym Shanghai?
I've been trying to get an invitation to get in there because, man, I would love to make a YouTube video about that, but
Yeah, well, I've been to the one in
yes,
Vegas. It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Everything you want, they've even got one of those hyperbolic gravity chambers. That's Dragon Ball Z. But no, they've actually got a chamber where you go in there and it reduces the oxygen, so it simulates high altitude. So you can even go in there and do your high altitude training. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's like what, basically, like you said, I let Joe carry on. You want about strength and conditioning? You carry on.
So pretty much every single professional sports team in the UK, be it cricket, rugby, football, especially football, they have designated training grounds, and that team is the only ones that are allowed to train there. There they will have all of their meal prep, all their coaches, all of their strength and conditioning, their gym, their physiotherapy, everything under one roof. It's the same in the US with NFL teams, basketball teams. It's the way professional sports should be done. For some reason, the UFC and general fighting is still seen as this very seldom programmed sport, even down to the money side of things. And this is one thing which I had a debate with somebody online about, is that there should be a pay packet and a pay wage for UFC fighters. When you sign up to the UFC and you're good enough to get in, you should be given a monthly wage to cover your training and your bills and everything else, so that you are able to train the best possible. Because some people, these guys are fighters. Some of these guys are coming out of real slum areas in LA. Some of them are coming out of farms in
favelas, Brazil.
In favelas, some of them are coming out of sand pits in Ghana. If you're looking at someone like Francis Ngannou, it's like if that guy was to have a fight, go back to wherever he comes from, and not get a pay wage until he fights next, I think that massively caps the performance of these athletes. Like, you struggled massively. Like, between fights, you had no revenue other than teaching people, which meant you couldn't focus on your own training because you were spending half your time coaching.
Coaching others. But that's also why I'm Padman Brad.
Yeah, exactly.
But the sickest man on pads you've ever seen in your life.
The problem is as well, I think if you're a new fighter, like the main person I was referencing with this was Kevin Kroom. I don't know if you saw his debut a couple of months ago. He hit a guy with a really sick guillotine. It was very unorthodox style guillotine. It was like an inverted rear naked choke guillotine, which was quite cool. But
power guillotine.
Yeah, but he won fight of the night. He got KO of the night or whatever it was. Got a 50 grand bonus on top of his basic minimum packet, which is what, 12 and 12?
12 and 12, I think.
So
10
12
and 10.
Yeah, 12 to show, 12 to win, and then he got a 50 grand bonus. He said on Instagram the day before the fight that he had $14 in his bank account. So he was broke. He was fighting and surviving at the lowest level. But now he earned 70 grand. He went out and bought himself a new truck. He went out and bought himself some new clothes and this, that, and the other. And he's probably now back down to not a massive amount in the bank. Going forward, if he doesn't fight for another 6 months, his ability to train will start to taper off because he can't afford the best levels. Yeah. If you're getting £3,000-4,000 a month or $1,000 a month, so you can afford your massage therapy after your training session, so you don't get knots and injuries. You can afford a decent strength and conditioning coach. You can afford to eat the best. You will be a better fighter. And yes, it will cost around about $1 million a month to cover all 500 athletes under the UFC roster, but those 500 athletes will become better athletes in the process. Like footballers, professional footballers, they're on a wage. They're getting paid, in some cases, up to £500,000 a week, even not to play. But that's
pounds as well, not US dollars. So that's like, some of them are getting about $1 million a week.
Yeah.
A week.
Yeah.
That's not including
professional combat sports is definitely lagging behind in that department. What's his name? Tony Jeffries, the boxer. He put out this post on Instagram about the difference between his amateur and his professional boxing career, and how when he was boxing amateur,
on Instagram
yeah, Tony Jeffries.
Yeah,
he's talking about as an amateur, like it gave him the idea that this is great, everything's taken care of. He's on the national team. He's got all the coaches, he's got the facility, he's got insurance, everything's covered, everything's taken care of, everything's being pointed in the right direction. And then he goes pro, and suddenly you're on your own. You're on your own in this big wide world where everybody's trying to take advantage of you, and you don't know anything.
It's scary as well. Yeah. That big wide world is a horrible place, especially if you have to if you're a brand, say you're an amateur, you've got 6 or 7 fights behind you, you get drafted by the UFC on, say, one of their fight nights or through the Dana White Contender Series, or just called up for debuts. Over the summer, because they had to pack so many events in, half of the undercards were debuts. So they were signing 5 to 10 new fighters every single week just because they had to fill the roster of every single event. Those people were going from, backyard brawling or like low-level pay-per-view events, or not even pay-per-view, low-level local events, to the world stage, where the mental preparation for that is ridiculous. Like, it's so much harder and there's so much more pressure. And these guys, they haven't been carved out of stone over years and years and years of prep and a team behind them in the UFC. They've just been thrown in at the deep end, and that's where a lot of problems can happen. Yeah. I think there'll be a massive, we have kind of seen it a little bit, but I don't think enough time has really passed to see the actual mental problems within the UFC.
I just want to touch in there. I trained with the British judo squad for a couple of days, and they're on the same as the British boxing squad. So they get 24 grand a year, $30,000 a year. They get all their clothes, all their food. After their training session, they go to an area where they go get the food. Their food is made from, and they have a colour system. So red, yellow, green. They're allowed a certain amount of green, certain amount of red, certain amount of ambers or yellows. And they can put that on their plate, boom. So their food's done. They haven't got to make their own food. All their competitions are done. Their clothes is from, everything they get is done. Their training is all organised from, it's a government system. As soon as you go pro, you lose that 24 grand a year, you got to make your own food. And by the way, there's no British there's no Great British or English, Scottish, Wales, Northern Ireland team where it's funded by the government. We are just normal. It's like with football scheme. When I first signed to the UFC, they said that they sort of give you a speech. Don't be that guy that gets done for drugs or DUI or anything like that. Don't don't go out. Don't be a dick. Basically, footballers, they get taught how to act in front of the public. And well, fighters are people that have come. Well, most of them have come from street fighting anyway.
Street fighting background.
It's fighting. They've come across.
If you're a good fighter, you are not usually a nice person. Like, remember when you did the Ultimate Fighter, and your intro was, "I'm Brad. My mum and dad are still together. I've got a nice, happy life. No sob story. Sorry."
I didn't have a sob story.
But everybody else was like, "Yeah, I've been homeless 16 times, and I've been broke.
My cat died when I was 3.
My dad murdered me mum." And it was just like, that was literally every other person was just like, their life story was why they were fighters, is because they had to fight their whole life. You decided to get in fighting because you wanted to go into the army. And it was just like, well, what's the hardest thing I could possibly do to toughen myself up before I go in the army? And you found the local MMA gym, which at the time was training out of a karate studio.
That's actually a good question. Why did you, Mr. Ramsey, start fighting?
That's a good question. In a great twist of irony, financial necessity.
Really?
Wow,
I was working 3 jobs at the time.
Most
I had a
is like, absolutely not. How do you make money?
I had a giant stack of medical bills. I had a giant stack of medical bills because the medical industry in the U.S. is messed up, and I needed $50 extra a month to make ends meet.
Wow.
And there was a local fight show. They did kickboxing matches and NHB. That's what they used to call MMA back in the day, before it was MMA. And I had a Taekwondo background. I thought, well, I trained in Taekwondo, I trained in Shotokan karate, I trained in capoeira. I'll do some kickboxing. It's basically the same thing, right? Not really, but I didn't know that. And I signed up for this fight. I got paid exactly $50 to fight for my first fight.
And afterwards you needed more money for
Man, I got my ear ripped off. I got my left ear ripped off. I had to have it surgically attached. It was a $50 copay. So I made $0 on that exchange. Fortunately, I managed to avoid the other medical expenses associated with that. Otherwise, it would have cost me thousands. But yeah, that was why I initially got into fighting, was to make money. But yeah, man, as a precautionary tale for all the kids out there with stars in their eyes, because I get so many emails from young guys thinking that cage fighting is the route to financial success.
It's the route to mental health.
And an easy one at that. It's not, man. It's not. Like, again, I was fighting for $50 a fight when I started. I think the biggest paycheck I made in the United States for a fight was $350. That was including the win bonus. Now, when I moved to, yeah, there wasn't much. When I moved to China, the paychecks were a lot bigger, like a lot bigger, which kind of
Even
surprised
for, like,
me. Like a lot of
amateur events.
How
guys
much
from
you get paid in
Thailand will
China?
come over here to China to fight just because the paychecks are much bigger in China than they are in Thailand. Because they love to put on these like China versus the rest of the world type of shows. And so the first MMA fight I had in China, it's not recorded on SureDog, but man, this was a crazy mess. They invited a bunch of white guys from a bunch of different countries because they wanted white foreign faces against the China top team. And the China
Like
top
the
team at the
Quest
time
with
was a
Van Damme.
fledgling. Yeah, they were basically based out of the Xi'an University of Sport, which is where the national Sanda team trains, one of the top Sanda teams in China. And they had a group of guys training for mixed martial arts. They imported a black belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach from Brazil to go help them out, and a couple other guys. And they got this ragtag team of random white foreigners from around the world. But they said, you guys are all, as far as this show is concerned, you're Americans, because this is China versus America. And there was Sebastian Kerestiam. He fights in 1FC now. He was there from, where is he from? Sweden? And he's like, I'm not an American. What are you guys talking about? And they had him walk out carrying like the American flag. And it was crazy pageantry.
Did any of the
man,
white
that
guys
fight was
win? 'Cause I
nuts.
can imagine the Chinese
But,
audience would like that.
Yeah, so there was a Swede, there was me, there was a Canadian, there was I don't know, like people from all these different nationalities, but they're saying you guys are all Americans because this is China versus America, and it was rigged. The whole show was
Did any
rigged.
of you win?
So they would they would stop like almost every fight except for one, almost every fight, and come up with some nonsense excuse, like oh man. I'm not. I don't know if you know Juma Bieke Twershwan. He fought in the UFC.
Was that
I think
a
he had
name
one
you
or two
just
fights there. But
Christ, man.
yeah,
No, we don't know who that is.
yeah. Anyway, Juma Bieke, he's from northern China, and he was fighting on this show, and he fights Marcus Waters, who was at the time the jiu-jitsu coach at Tiger Muay Thai. He's moved to the Philippines, I think. But anyway, very good jiu-jitsu. Marcus goes out there, does a highlight reel flying armbar on Juma Bieke. Armbars him. Juma taps out. Okay? The referee runs over, holds up the Chinese fighter's arm and says, you win. Marcus is like, no, you got it wrong. I won. I did the armbar. It was cool. Everybody saw it. He's like, no, you lose. He wins.
Did they cheer?
I'm sitting there.
God.
I'm sitting there ringside like, what the heck?
You know, the crazy
So
thing
I go
is,
into fight later. And it's a weird fight because, this dude had good wrestling, but no ground game. So he takes me down. I'm in the guard. He beats me up a little bit. I sweep him, and I quickly realize he doesn't know anything about escaping mount. I beat the crap out of him with my elbows for like 3 minutes. I'm looking up at the referee like, aren't you going to stop this? He's like, continue. And I keep hitting him, and he's bleeding, and I'm like, dude, ref, stop the fight. And he's like, continue. And I'm like, what is this, an execution? The round ends. They drag him back to his corner. Okay? They revive him. The fight continues. We get out there, we box a little bit. He throws a right hand, grazes me over the eye. I get cut. One drop of blood falls out. I see a white towel being thrown in the middle of the ring. It's the ring doctor. He's like, the foreigner is cut. The fight must stop. I'm like, wait. Anyway, every
What was
fight
your
they found
opponent
some
like? Did your opponent
ridiculous
get
excuse
cut?
to stop
yeah,
it.
he's blooded to hell.
But
What was your
that's-
opponent like? Was he all sliced up?
Did he fight fair?
No, was your opponent cut? Was your opponent cut?
He was cut. He was cut.
In the elbows.
I thought you said,
you-
did he fight fair? I mean, he was throwing soccer kicks at my head. They told me it was UFC rules. I was like, okay, UFC rules, yeah, I'm familiar with that. But there was apparently a fundamental misunderstanding in what the rules of UFC were, because they were throwing soccer kicks at my head, and I'm like, whoa, okay. Sweep this guy before it gets bad. Anyway, but that's how Chinese MMA fights were for a very long time, like 12 years ago when I first got here.
surprising.
Like there was a lot of rampant cheating. there was a lot of gambling behind the scenes. I think it was basically like the people who put up the money for the fight shows. They would say, okay, we're betting on these guys, and so they have to win regardless. And when I started judging fights, I'd sit at the judges' table, and I remember this one time, and I'm gonna point out, it was Rebel FC. Those guys suck. They owe me money, by the way. They owe a lot of people money. Rebel FC, boo, shame, shame. So I'm judging fights for Rebel FC, and this shady guy comes up and starts telling me, it's a Chinese guy and a Russian guy, and he's like, make sure the Russian guy loses. If there's no knockout, the Chinese guy wins every round. I look at him like, who the heck are you? And I'm thinking like, if the Russian guy wins on the scorecard, am I going to meet some hoodlums out in the backstage when the fight show is over?
Yeah.
Fortunately, the Russian dude knocked out the Chinese fighter in the first round. And I was like, man, did I just dodge a bullet? Literally, I don't know, but there was some shady dealings going on with that show. So,
when you first started fighting, was there any moral dilemmas with obviously your religious side of things? Because obviously, like I said, in your early years, you were off doing missionary work all around the world. For you to then decide, I'm going to get into fighting, did that not play down awkwardly with your church and your followers and everything else?
None whatsoever.
Really? That's really surprising.
None whatsoever. And that probably sounds surprising because everybody kind of assumes that every religious person is a what's the word? A pacifist.
Turn the other cheek.
Who should feel bad about hitting someone in the face. But the first president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, I'm a member, Joseph Smith, was himself a wrestler, and he loved to compete, and he competed on Sundays. He got a lot of flack from other religious leaders in the area because they'd wag his fingers like, you think you're a prophet and you're out here wrestling in the dirt on Sundays? Shame for shame. You're a bum. And he'd be like, if you want to throw down, you can be next. And he'd challenge like these other preachers and pastors and so on.
To wrestling
and
sports.
So in Mormonism, there is this long tradition of combat sports. It's a very long tradition going back to the beginning, and a lot of people are not aware of this. I mean, Mormons are not pacifists.
When it comes to a religious
We're not
pacifists.
pacifists.
You can't be a pacifist.
Like I know a lot of.
At some point, you have to stand up for your abilities and your own rights. And like I said, if you come across another group of people who are trying to downplay your beliefs or even stop your beliefs, history shows that the only way that ever gets fixed is with violence.
I'm also going to say, it's just like the button there.
Yeah, man. Violence solves a lot of problems. Not every problem, but a lot of them.
When it's people talking and getting mouthy and saying that they're better than this, that, and the other, then sometimes a punch in the face is all that's needed.
I was going
to
to
shut a lot of people up.
What religions would you say are pacifist?
Hindu.
No. I would say Buddhists.
Buddhists, that's the one. Buddhists.
That's a good question.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Name another one that's pacifist. Yeah, I know. That's a quick one. You daren't say Christian.
I think it's more so individuals rather than religions. Because if you look at the actual doctrines of like the various sects of Christianity, like if you look at Calvinism, for example, they're not arguing about, is it okay to get in a boxing ring? They're arguing about, grace and works and faith and how that accounts to salvation or whatever. But yeah, everybody just has this idea that's how religion's supposed to work.
Because Jesus turned the cheek.
Yeah, combat sports though.
Jesus turned the cheek, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Jesus is a great example of this, man. Jesus is a great example of how religious reverence is more than just quietly sitting with your arms folded, listening and saying quiet prayers. I mean, when he felt that his religious beliefs were being disrespected, when the money changers were selling stuff in the temple of Zerubbabel, he went in there and he kicked some butt, man. He flipped over the tables. He's like, get out of here. He used actual violence.
That's when he lost his temper. That was what were they doing?
And I would argue,
was that when they were overcharging for goods and stuff? Was it like a market?
Yeah.
Well, this is one of the anti-Jew things as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they're selling stuff in the temple. Like they're selling animals to sacrifice on the altar. That's something that they did back in the day in the temple. But the idea of selling goods and services inside the temple, that was, that's not okay. That's not kosher, And Jesus went in there and he's like, guys, you are disrespecting my Father's house. Get out of here. And I would argue that by using violence, Jesus demonstrated reverence. So,
well, no, I mean,
anyway, reverence is more than quietly sitting, is what I'm saying.
Me and Joe both went to church.
So,
What did you? I went to a C of E school, Church of England school. I grew up a Protestant. All right, in terms of I grew up a Christian. Then that's easier. I don't know if you get. Do they describe
anything?
Do they describe where you're Catholic?
Yeah, I'm from an Italian background, so I would have been Catholic.
Italiano.
A
pizza.
My grandmother passed away about a month and a half ago, and the vicar was, or the priest, vicar? Whatever it was, and it was like a regular guest around my grandmother's house. He was there every single week. She died with a rosary on. It was just, she's very, very devout religious. But yeah, it never really ever affected me. Well, the schools I went to weren't religious schools. My family weren't religious, so nothing ever really came from it.
My grandparents are super religious. Nan was super religious, Protestant.
I think it's also part of
my girlfriend's mum's Catholic.
That whole generation, I think it was way more prominent. Now, I think with the way things are, unless you are brought up under a religious household, I don't think it's even that prominent anymore.
I used to go to church almost every day when I was at school. I grew up in America too, Detroit, 8 Mile, Detroit, South. No, I was actually,
really?
I lived just outside of Detroit on a road.
When was this?
I grew up in America, you dick.
Really?
Yeah, and Germany. This story's been said 1,000 times.
I've never heard it.
I lived on a road called Pontiac
Brad,
Drive.
I had no idea you were such an international man of mystery. Wow.
Pontiac Drive in South Lyon, just outside of Detroit, on a road, just off a road called 8 Mile, obviously made famous. And of course, I went there, and it was very religious there in America, and I had to get up, and I solemnly swear, as a pledge my allegiance to the flag, and all this shit. But there's actually videos of me with an American accent as a kid. I was there in 1995 to 1996. I loved America. It was incredible. We had a choice.
Interesting.
This is how much my parents messed up.
I kind of had the opposite experience because I grew up with my mother's from England. She from like where they speak the Geordie dialect way up north. And
I know my girlfriend's mum's from Newcastle.
So I grew up between these two extremes of accents, like redneck Americans in a small town where they speak what you could call Idaho mumble speak, and this version of a Geordie accent. And so I'm growing up between these two cultures, and I'm going to school speaking like my mother, and the other kids are like, what the heck is wrong with you? Go back to your own country, kid.
Dialect.
And I got bullied a lot because of the way I used to speak when I was a kid.
Strong.
Yeah. You'd say things like banana instead of banana, and so you get a punch in the mouth for that in a small town, man.
Go up north to Newcastle, it's banana. Our Ramsey Dewey is a proper fine lad, and he eats his banana. My girlfriend and my fiance's mum, she's Geordie, and all of her family's Geordie, so I got to listen to it every day. It's a very potent accent. When I went to America for the MMA lab, shout out, AZ represent. When I was in there, a guy called Andrew Fisher came over. He's from Sunderland. Sounds pretty much the same if you ask me. They hate each other when they play football. They got to have the police there and shit. But so I didn't. But when we went to, he came over, and I'm never gonna forget. We went to a shop called Sprouts in America, and it's like a farmer market store. And he's got a strong accent. And he went up to this guy and he goes, "I'll read mate. Do you sell any dates?" And the guy goes, "Excuse me, sir. Well, what's that?" He goes, "Do you sell any dates?" He goes, "Can you spell that, please, sir?" He goes, D-A-T-E-S, dates. And he goes, no. And I said, "Mate, sorry, mate. Do you sell any dates?" "Never heard of them, sir." And then all of a sudden, Andrew turns around and goes, "Oh, yeah, there they are, man, dates." He goes, "Oh, sir, you mean dates." And he goes, and this is the same guy. He was on like probation. I think they offer him jobs. He had to work or something. And this woman comes up to him, and I could not believe it, because Americans are famous for being over the top and in your face, annoying as shit with their service, right? He comes over and he goes, this woman comes up to me and goes, "Oh, excuse me, sir, is this avocado okay?" And he goes, "Lady, I'm not an avocado expert. Go ask somebody else." And this walked out. I was like, "Do you know what I mean? Normally you can't get Americans away from you when you're at like a restaurant. Can I get you anything else, sir? Is everything okay? Does it taste good? Yeah, your breath doesn't. Cough. You know what I mean? Are you for coffee? Go on out. Feed the same. Let me eat my meal. And here's a $10 tip as well before you bitch and moan about that.
Oh God, I'm so glad we live in the UK.
Man, accents and dialects are so fascinating. I tell you what, though, it was largely because of this weird accent and dialect I grew up with, and growing up between cultures that was the reason I got into martial arts, because I was bullied so much because of it.
Did you have a Geordie accent?
Up so much of What's that?
Did you have a Geordie accent? Did you have an English accent?
I wouldn't really call it a Geordie accent. It was a weird hybrid accent. Like, not British, not American, just somewhere in between, and that confuses people.
You got a weird accent now, if you ask me. You sound like you should be a narrator for in nature programs. Like, this is a squirrel.
Yeah, I get this all the time on my YouTube channel. At least once every video, someone says, well, and people get mad about it. Like, why do you talk with that? Why are you putting on that weird voice, man? Talk normal. Talk like a normal person.
Sorry, it's
but yeah, man, that's why I got into martial arts. And I'll tell you why. Like many people, my first real exposure to martial arts was seeing Bruce Lee movies, and I think, because so many people got into martial arts because of Bruce Lee, he's become so idolized. And one thing I want to talk to you guys about is Bruce Lee. Now, we have made a lot of people angry on the internet over the years with YouTube videos that we've made. Let's make some more people angry.
Yeah.
But one thing I've been thinking about is...
Are you sure you want to go down this route?
Yes, we're going down this path, man. And I'm going to say, the people who claim to love Bruce Lee the most are generally the people who disrespect the man the most.
Agreed.
And here's what I mean by that. When you put him up on an altar, on a pedestal, and worshiping him as a demigod, and you say something like Bruce Lee could beat UFC heavyweight champions today, or something like that, I think that's disrespectful.
Massively.
It's disrespectful to the man's memory. It's not who he was. It's not what he was about. I mean, he's a guy who had some brilliant ideas at the time.
Yeah. Well, he was a philosopher and a revolutionary in that way, but that's like saying Henry Ford made the best car ever. And it's like, he made the first car, he didn't make the best car. And it's like, he might have started the production line, the idea of making a bit here and making a bit here and making a bit here. But within 5 years of that, other companies were doing it better than he did. And if he hadn't have done it, somebody else probably would have came up with the idea as well, because there was a need for it. He was just the first one. And Bruce Lee, like you said, he was the guy who kind of made this idea of cross-training in a world where it was very strict about how you trained and what you trained. And he took the elements and tried to, bring them all together to create Jeet Kune Do.
I don't think he was first, though.
No, I don't think he was either.
I don't think he was first.
I don't think he was
either. He wasn't the first, but he certainly did
Bruce Lee.
Popularize the idea. He brought it to the public conscious
to the public.
through movies.
Via movies, via Hollywood and stuff. Yeah, I'll give you that.
And a weird note about that, like, nobody really paid attention to his movies until Enter the Dragon. Mm-hmm. And it was specifically because he bulked up for that movie. Like, he went from 135 pounds to 165 pounds. And
he was that heavy?
He wasn't a giant guy in that movie, but he was much, much bigger, much more swole, much more defined than he was in his other films.
Are you sure he was 160? I got told he was less than 150.
From what I've heard, he was about 165 pounds in Enter the Dragon. Most of the rest of his life, he was 135. I think he was like 5'8".
Oh, was he? He was as tall as that?
Yeah.
I thought he was considerably smaller than that.
I think there's a reason why you think he's shorter. It's because he had a lot of stunt doubles. As we all know, he had a hell of a lot of stunt double people that were doing stuff for him.
Yuen Wah was his stunt double, yeah.
And how tall
anytime you
was
see
he?
Bruce Lee do any acrobatic movement, it was Yuen Wah.
Like, I'm a professional videographer. I own a photography studio. I've done this thing for years. When I watch fight scenes, I don't watch them with a normal eye of a continuity. I don't watch them as in, okay, that shot's exactly what's happening right now. I see all of the little editing cuts and camera movements and angle changes which hide the transition from actor to stunt double, but also the action to what's known as B-roll. So it's guy throws the punch, and then there's a shot of the fist moving towards the guy's face. It's like that's a completely different cut. Like the camera has gone from on the side of them to in front of them, and then back to the side. And it could be a half an hour process to catch 0.5 of a second of actual footage. But inside that, the camera's moved 5 times, the actors have changed out 5 times, and what the final result is Bruce Lee flying through the air with his foot perfectly upright, and then it lands on the guy's face, and then Bruce lands perfectly back on his feet and does his great big...
And then he holds a ki for 5 seconds.
That was 12 different shots using 3 different stunt doubles, and the impact never actually happened. And people are like, wow, he's so good. It's like, it's fake. It doesn't work. It's so frustrating. Have you watched the new Cobra Kai series?
But yeah, people get very angry when you make comments
People
like
don't
this.
get it.
But I think getting angry about that is a great disrespect, not just to Bruce Lee, but also to Yuen Wah. I mean, he's a legend in Hong Kong cinema as a stuntman. I mean, this guy, he's been consistently working in stunts for decades. And to say, oh, that wasn't him. Of course it was him. Every time he did a flip like that, flip he did at the beginning of the movie after that fight scene with Sammo Hung, where he does that like backflip over the stick, and when he does the backflip kick when he's fighting in the tournament, that's all Yuen Wah.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen actual footage of Bruce Lee sparring or fighting? One more thing. I have seen what they call a video. They show you one video of him allegedly sparring, but if Bruce Lee was not sparring on that video, they've hand selected some good clips, because every counter he do, it was almost like it was premeditated, almost like the sparring was set up. He comes in, side kick. It's like, I don't
Are you
know if
talking about that one with where he
staged.
spars his own students? I think it's Taki Kimura, and it's debate.
He's in the black
the internet's
kung fu
arguing if
outfit.
the other guy's Dan Onosanto or the other.
Yeah.
But either, they're wearing the pads. It's his own students. I spar with my own students all the time, and I can kick their butts any which way, because they're learning, and I know their movements. I know their movement patterns backwards and forwards because I taught them, right? And so I can look like the best fighter in the world putting up sparring footage of my own students.
Especially
Anybody
when they're
can.
not trying to beat you because you're the coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, also that they're exercising this sort of unspoken politeness, if you will. So that's one thing people don't really understand about that. But yeah, there's a politeness there that wouldn't exist in a real fight or a sparring match with a stranger.
Even just how movies are filmed, like I watch a load of behind-the-scenes stuff because I enjoy watching how fight choreography is made. And if you watch the actors work the stages of the choreo through in rehearsal, you can tell the moves are the same, but they're done at 45%, maybe 60% at max, and the shots nowhere near land. And if they were to land, they wouldn't land because the shot would be too obvious. And then when you see the final product of how it's shot and the cinematography style of it, there are lots of camera movements, fast paces, shooting at 125 speed as well, on narrow lenses with short aperture stuff. You can hide all of these fakeries. Real fighting and stage fighting, they're not even the same thing. Stage fighting's dancing. It's making something look like it is, but it's not. They're not hitting each other, and they're not actually punching each other. They're throwing each other through tables which aren't real tables. So if it was a real table, that person wouldn't go through it. When it's a fake table, they go through it, and it makes the slam itself or the punch or anything look better than it will actually.
Breakaway tables, sugar glass bottles, all those props, man.
It really does boil my pee.
One thing I've learned about fight choreography, I've dabbled a little bit in it, and it is that real martial artists tend to make terrible martial arts actors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're like,
it is really hard to work with real martial artists because they want to make it look genuine.
Yeah.
Well, and what's genuine in real life looks terrible on camera, with few exceptions.
It's the exact opposite to, you know how you said when the guy's in mount and you're going, well, I'll just punch you in the face. And you go, no, you wouldn't be able to punch me in the face because I would buck, I'd tug, I'd trap, I'd roll, I'd sweep. It's the exact opposite in a fight because you go, okay, right, you're going to throw this punch and the guy's going to lean left. He goes, yeah, well, then I would just counter him with a hook. And you go, no, you can't do that. He has to dodge the punch. And then he has to be able to do this and do that because if you actually fight him, you'll just beat the fuck out of him. Excuse my language. It's,
We went the whole hour and a half.
My bad.
Without saying that.
It's Bruce Lee. It's
can you
Bruce Lee.
edit-
I couldn't help myself.
Can you edit that bit out? Because I'm fed up of always, every time we make
no.
something on YouTube, we're always looking to take money off us. Master Wong, let's go on to Master Wong, actually. If Master Wong was attacked in the street, it's impossible to attack Master Wong from behind because he never has anything behind him apart from solid objects like walls.
Aware.
He is like always aware. You cannot sneak up. He's like an Indian. You can't sneak up on an Indian.
Well, he's like a pigeon. He's got his eyes on the side of his head.
Yeah.
He knows what's behind him.
That's true, man. That's true. Every one of his videos I've seen, he's always like, and then you look around to see if there's another guy behind you.
You cannot live your life
at all
like that.
times.
You cannot. I'd rather be stabbed from behind and killed.
So we filmed with Ginger Ninja Trickster, and he said that he went. Yeah, he said he went for lunch. No, I don't care. Screw me, I ain't gonna watch it. He said he filmed with Master Wong. They went to dinner, and Master Wong was like, I need to sit in the corner so I can see the room. And it's just like, dude, we're going out for dinner.
Oh, he's like that in real life?
Yes.
Like that in real life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
This isn't just a character. This is revelatory to me because many people on the internet have wondered, like, is Master Wong putting on a character? Because if you watch like his early videos from like 7 or 8 years ago when he started YouTube, it was pretty like straightforward, just like here's a technique, here's a technique, here's a technique, video's done. And it wasn't until fairly recently, just a few years ago, that this over-the-top, larger-than-life, almost like paranoid about being attacked character came out on his videos, and that is so interesting to hear that he's like that in real life.
I think that he spent so much time in that mentality of how in his persona that he has become that persona. And I was I was talking to somebody about this the other day who was an actor, and he plays a completely different part to what he is in real life. And he said that he finds himself acting his character because people know him as that, and it's become so ingrained in his language, how the actor talks. It's actually physically changed his own dialect. And it's Master Wong's so in that hyper
this is the problem.
That mentality that has carried over to his own personality. And I think that's who he is.
That is interesting.
Also as well, I think he's been doing this crap for so long that he has been challenged and bitched at and moaned and trolled so many times that he is now like a hypersensitive, hyper-aggressive little puppy. He reminds me of a little dog.
I imagine he probably gets challenges on the internet constantly.
He's a yappy little chihuahua.
Or less dangerous, chihuahua with ground down teeth.
Yeah, less dangerous than a chihuahua.
Because
then if you have a martial arts channel on YouTube, you will get so many challenges from trolls on the internet, and I get several every day. I'm sure. Master Wong has how many, like 2.something million subscribers. He probably gets a couple hundred every day, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. And he's
that can be exhausting.
He's never
just
taken
mentally exhausting.
That's the crazy thing.
I'd like to meet him.
Yeah.
See what he's like. I'd love to meet him just to see what he's really like. But is he such a whiny, pathetic man in real life? Do you know what I mean? Is he really going to be so hypersensitive that he has to ring up some MMA coach in America and cry about me because I made a funny video? And then the audacity of both of those guys criticising my career when I've been to the UFC. I've done it. I've been there. I coach other people. I try and teach people legit stuff. For him to then say, that was like, first of all, I didn't just, what is that swearing? I didn't just destroy his technique. I tried to say what you should do, and I tried to say that he should be doing this, right? I wasn't just there saying rubbish, don't speak to him. I also spoke highly of him. All I got called was a douchebag over and over again. But the best and most reassuring bit was in the comments section. Out of 10 comments at the time, 6 were defending me, saying no, all he's trying to do is show real techniques. I want about everyone I teach. I want them to get better. I want all my students to be better than other people's students. I don't want my students to go out there and go, you got a knife in your hand? Allow me.
Yeah.
Throat chop, groin strike. And by the way, have you ever tried, I tell you what, I got a challenge for you, Ramsey. You might like this. You go against a good high-level kickboxer. You try and kick him in the nuts. See what happens. It won't happen. They won't. You try. They'll block it.
Oh,
They'll punch
man.
you. They'll hit you. It's not that easy to kick someone in the nuts.
But
Tai Chi Chief said his whole game plan was literally to fondle my groin and gouge me in the eyes. But if you can't hit me in the face, how are you going to pick my eyes?
Man.
If you can't hit me in the bull backstuken, how are you going to get there? It's not going to work.
That is your next video idea, Ramsey. How easy
mean, if you
is
can-
it to get kicked in the
If you can
balls?
reliably, like if you have a really good setup for an inside leg kick, then it's
Yeah,
not unreasonable
absolutely, but if you
to
don't
assume
train
you
that
can
inside leg
use
kick,
that
you'll
same
never
setup
land
to
it.
go for a groin kick. But if you don't know how to do that, if you can't reliably land the inside leg kick, then God, you are never going to land a groin kick against
I got
anybody
another
who
one. Sorry to interrupt as
has a
well.
modicum of experience.
I got one more. I have to get this in. I was saying it to you the other day. People always say to me, "Yeah, but mate, you don't train to do eye gouges." Well, how many eye gouges have you done in the gym, mate? Well, how many times have you eye gouged someone in the eyes? Never.
Pulled
But
them off
I
and
train
had
the
two perfect
motions.
little balls.
But I train the motions, right? So you've never actually eye gouged someone, right? I train to punch people in the face. I have hit hundreds and hundreds of people in the face, hundreds of thousands of times. The difference is I've actually practiced what I say I'm going to do. You've not actually ever gouged someone in the eyes. I've hit
man.
people in the bollocks too.
You know,
by
to
accident.
all the Krav Makido experts of the internet, I would say
What's this
this.
Krav Makido
if
you're on
if you
about?
want to practice all the illegal techniques, just go to a beginner jiu-jitsu class and roll with the white belts. They will poke you in the eyes.
Yeah,
they
they
will
will grind
scratch
your
you.
balls,
They
you'll
will
get
claw
your
you. They will
elbows and
groin
knees.
strike you. They will bite you. They will do all these illegal things because they're just learning. They're untrained. And they will just flail around wildly like a wild animal trying to
just got your
survive
Krav
because it's their
Makido
survival instinct until they learn better to control themselves. But yeah, go to a beginner jiu-jitsu class. You will experience all of that with the white belts.
I think I've got
So,
your next video
man.
idea though, Ramsey. I think you and Jordan need to do how easy is it to kick somebody in the balls
while fighting back.
while
Oh,
fighting
man.
back. Yeah, so stick
Unfortunately,
on a,
Jordan
stick on a
has moved
decent
to
Thai
Germany.
cup and see if Jordan
So
can
I wish he
kick
was
you
still
without
here,
any
man. I wish he was
setup,
still here.
Without any intro,
They're just kicking.
just kicking. See if he can kick you in the balls if you are coming forward at him with actual strikes.
And you can do
Yeah,
whatever.
that is a great idea, though.
I think that's a very
But yeah, I'm sure a bunch of people would come with the counterpoint with, but on an untrained fighter, it would totally work. Well, not necessarily, but
yeah. But that's
what
why
a
you
lot
train.
of people
You
come
train
at
That's
me
why
with
you
is
train.
professional
train to
fighters
not be
don't
untrained.
train for groin kicks, and therefore you could easily land one against a professional fighter. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
We
I
don't
challenge
stand-
you.
we
And then
don't
they will
stand
say,
square
but-
with them. You
But pro fighters get kicked in the groin all the time, and they need that 5-minute break. To which I say, you know why they take that 5-minute break?
Rest.
Because you want a 5-minute break.
because they're allowed.
Because they want to rest. I've
Wh-
been that
Whether
guy.
it clips
Yeah.
you
I've
on
been
the
that guy.
cup and it doesn't hurt you at all,
Bounces
take
off
the
the
5-minute
diamond
break.
guard, and you just like
Take full advantage of it.
no,
Yeah,
I
play
need
it up.
five,
Play it
give
up
me
like it's the
5.
worst thing in the world.
Mate, I love
you get
that
fouled,
5 minutes
take
break, Ramsey.
advantage
You
of that.
need it. When you're tired, mate, and you get the slightest flick across the groin guard, it's not, sorry, what do you call it? Cup in America. The slightest flick on the cup. It's like, oh, whiff a wee. Oh, whiff. Oh, I'm getting hot sweats.
fading
5 minutes.
away.
Oh, I need those 5 minutes to get my breath back
Yeah.
so I can defend myself. My bollocks are fine.
It's almost like a professional foul, like they do in soccer,
Yeah.
where they get slightly pushed and they fall on the ground, grab their shin, like I'm dying.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Just
that's
play the
basically
ref.
what it is,
Just
and
play the ref.
it's
Yeah,
for
it's just a
the
rest.
same
It's
strategic
dirty.
reason.
It's dirty, but
Give yourself the most advantage, the most possibility of winning.
I got a good one for you, Ramsey. You have got someone who just tried, raping you, stabbing you, shooting you. You've got them in a rear naked choke, and they grab your. Do you? Oh my God, let go, or do you just put them to sleep? Then they'll let go.
Well, first of all, I'm wondering if I have them in a rear naked choke, how are they reaching there in the first place?
God,
I've
you've got no
my hooks in
imagination.
If I've got a
Have you
rear
not
naked
watched-
choke
have
on.
you- Long
Have you
video.
not seen porn? No, you go,
But
this
if
hand
I'm doing it
slips
like an
behind
idiot,
and
just
then
standing
grabs.
there,
So
giving
they're-
them space to move around and whatnot.
So you got them in a rear naked
Yeah,
choke.
man.
Their faces forward. They put their hand underneath their buttocks and they reach for your gonads, right? And all you got to do is you either let go, oh my God, he's got me in their balls, or do you just go, son, put them to sleep.
They're going to be dead. I'm just going to say that.
They're going to
I'm gonna be
sleep,
losing
and
my
then I'm going
religion
to
pretty
get
quickly.
stuff, put stuff on them, like Tabasco sauce and in their eyes and up their nose and in their areas. Bumhole.
At that moment, I would probably think, all right, all those neck breaking techniques, all those neck cranks, jaw cranks, where I can choke you and break your jaw at the same time. Now they're coming out.
I'd love to. I'd
Now
love
they're
to do that
coming
to
out.
someone.
Build, that's a good potential idea. If
Just
you can get
straight
hold of
across.
I say even like a medical skeleton, but then you don't have the muscle resistance. You almost need to take a medical skeleton, cover it in elastic around the neck area, and see if you can snap the bones and fight against the elastic. How hard is it to snap a neck?
I bet it's hard unless you
It's
crank
really
it.
hard. Your neck muscles are ridiculously strong.
Oh, mine are.
Yeah, yours, yeah, exactly. But neck muscles in general are very strong.
How hard do you reckon it is to break a neck, Ramsey?
Well, it depends on the
Using a
person,
kung fu
and it depends
technique.
on the position you're in. Now, let's say you've got back mount,
Yep.
and you sink this arm around there, and you've got
And you drop
a
down.
nice gable grip in, and you put some force in there, and you drive your
That's
head
where
up
you
against
drop the
their head
towards their chest.
to
Yeah.
crank it the wrong way.
I reckon that's hard.
Yeah, I think it needs your entire body force and gravity to break those muscles. This is only ever going to be as strong as one or, your biceps, your forearms, and the momentum. That's not enough to break a neck. It needs weight. Like, you don't break your neck by spinning your head round. You break it when your whole body lands on it. That's the only way.
Yeah, it depends on what you mean by break the neck. So, for example, if you're doing a neck crank, like say a grommet, a catch wrestling move,
Yeah.
where you're torquing the dude around.
Yeah.
You're familiar with that one? Yeah.
Or like a Japanese
it doesn't take
necktie.
a lot of force to get a tap, but how much force does it take to actually cause serious neck and spinal trauma?
Do you know the move?
Probably not that much more.
Do you know the
You
Japanese
don't think it's
necktie?
much more? I think it's probably a lot more.
Do you know-
Serious injury.
Do you know the Japanese necktie? Do you know what the Japanese?
Yeah.
It's like a, so you get to, or you roll. I can't remember what it's called. Where you trap the leg in like a half guard and you turn the head sideways. I think it's very similar to the move you were just on about in catch wrestling. You can get it from front headlock, turn it, lock a leg, and you get your arm and your head's turned up.
So like a cross between like a Darce and a Peruvian necktie.
But it's without any choke at all. It's just pure neck crank. I don't think it takes much effort at all from that position because you've isolated the strong muscles go forward and backwards on the neck. If you turn the neck to the side muscles aren't so strong. They're not as strong as the ones at the front, ones at the back, very strong. Side muscles aren't. If you turn that head and crank it this way, you can even do it now, even do it yourself now. You can feel it. It's much weaker.
Yeah.
And I think
And that's
it
the
won't be
principle
as
all
much to
neck
get a
cranks are
crank.
based on, turning the head and
yeah,
tilting it
same as
downward.
all
In
neck
fact,
cranks.
when I did that, my neck just cracked right there.
That's why you turn the head in the first place. You turn the head, it makes it weaker. If you were strong enough, like Eddie Hall, you just pop
Maybe
a
that's the
chicken.
technique then, is to pull the head and then...
That is, you got.
Yeah, not so much
Yeah,
You won't be able to do that.
it's not the Hollywood Ninja neck snap, guys.
Yeah, you're not
everybody,
spinning a football.
everybody should know that.
Yeah, it's got to be that.
But
It's
yeah,
that pressure. It's not an instant snap. It's that constant guided force. It's like a blunt force trauma to your neck. It's that constant torque. Torque's the word I was looking for, rather than a spin.
but Joe, that is a really interesting idea you had for like setting up some sort of skeleton with elastic bands. I tried
They've
to make a
actually done
grappling
it on
dummy about
American
15 years
Sports
ago
Science.
with rebreakable joints.
Yeah, see if you
And it wasn't. It was kind of cool. It broke down pretty quickly, though. I basically got a bunch of hardware, some hinges and some screws and stuff, and it gave a little bit of resistance, like on an arm bar, and then it would snap in backwards, and I could pop it back into place, and it was cool for about a month, but then it wore out.
Yeah, that's so cool.
But man, it's a really great idea, man. I wish somebody would invent something like that.
There used to be, you two could help me out with this. There used to be a program on America where they would show the effectiveness of a certain type of kick, certain martial arts. Can either of you remember what that show
It's
was?
called Sports Science.
Was it Sports
Yes,
Science? It was
National
that then.
Geographic Sports Science.
And they would do like the kicking in the nuts. They had
Yeah, that
Fedor
was-
Emelianenko do the rear naked choke. It turns out he could squeeze as hard as a python. Do you know what I mean? There's 600 pounds of force or something in his rear naked choke. That's insane. 600 pounds.
I remember
That
watching
could
one.
snap your neck.
What was the most powerful kick? What would you say was the most powerful kick? What
The
sport
knee
would you-
won, believe it or not.
Pardon?
The knee won that I watched it the other day because that's not fair. It was the most powerful kick, and I'm pretty sure they done taekwondo kick. They done the turn in side kick. They done a Thai roundhouse,
And a capoeira kick.
and they done a capoeira one,
Yeah.
But the capoeira was also the biggest movement.
Yeah, exactly. And it used
that
the whole.
was the
The guy
difference.
dropped down and then came all the way up. With
He
his
jumped
whole
up,
body
boom.
movement. Yeah. So he had his whole body.
Was it
movement.
called
It's the
again?
martello. I love that move, actually, the martello from the floor. It's a beautiful movement. It looks really fancy, but man, it's a practical movement. It's a very practical movement. Like if you have a standing fighter versus a down fighter, then you want to do an up kick. I was actually a dude in the UFC.
Michael Pereira does it.
Blanking on the dude's name.
Michael
But yeah,
Pereira.
he pulled off one of these capoeira up kicks from the down fighter position, and you can do it. It doesn't even require a lot of flexibility. Like if you have 45 degrees of flexibility in your legs, which most humans have, you can kick somebody in the head from the floor. Whereas if you kick from standing, you basically have to do the splits to throw a head kick.
I
in most
can't do that.
situations.
I'm a
Yeah, but
boxer
the beauty
through
of
and through,
capoeira-
Ramsey. I think you can tell
Yeah,
that
is
by
that
the
it
way
puts.
I am on the pads and the way I hit the pads and stuff. I'm boxer through and through. I can check kicks, block
Yeah,
kicks.
but now the beauty of capoeira, other than the fact you don't have to be super flexible to do it, in spite of the way it looks, is that it puts your whole upper body weight into the kicks. Because you're not just kicking with the leg, you're throwing your upper body downward. It's almost like
creating a
like
whip.
the posterior chain connection in a Romanian deadlift.
Ooh, talk
that-
about
that sort of
Romanian
power.
deadlifts. What do you lift, Ramsey?
What do I lift?
What do you lift?
Oh man,
RDLs,
number
baby,
wise,
let's go. Oh, son. What do you lift? Bro science, fam.
I lift weights, man.
Yeah,
I lift weights.
what weight? Put a number before it.
What do you bench?
What do you
bruh?
bench, bruh?
Pathetically puny weights for a guy my size, man.
So basically what I'm
No,
saying
I'm-
is another misconception as well. What about this? Yeah, but this dude, look how much weight he lifts. Well, back to earlier, before I started doing strength and conditioning, I was fighting guys that did strength and conditioning. I was still knocking those guys out. I was still submitting those guys. I beat one guy called Sean Voisey. Guy was stacked. He was on he was in one of the best teams in the country, Trojan Free Fighters at the time. And he comes out, I was in my own town, and he brought more fans. Christ. He brought like 2 big buses down. In front of my own crowd, I was being booed.
Is that Bower Hill?
That was Bower Hill, yeah. I was booed in front of my own crowd. My own town, I was booed.
Oh man.
My God, I had like 50
Oh,
people.
no.
He brought 150 people and then he sold out. And I fought him and he was stacked. And I still beat him. Because, believe it or not, technique does overcome. And just because you can bench press more doesn't mean it's relative strength. A bodybuilder will not be a strong... All right, Henan Barral... No, wrong person. What's that really strong jiu-jitsu player? Really strong message. He was world champion. Brazilian guy. He's absolutely...
Burns?
No, he's got a Brazilian, Portuguese sounding name. I can't remember his name. But he was real famous jiu-jitsu practitioner. Shredded. He will beat a powerlifter of twice the size. And I've trained with a powerlifter called Matt Hardy. I told you about this. He can deadlift like 600 pounds, right? He is a beast. 270 kilos he deadlifted. Right? He is a beast. And he genuinely believed when we rolled and grappled, he was going to be able to just push me off, manhandle me. No.
Yeah, there's
No.
a point of diminishing returns in strength as far as how that translates over to fighting. Like people are always asking me questions about strength and conditioning, how that relates to fighting, and I would say probably the most important lifts for fighting, deadlifts, squats, and pull-ups, and for these specific reasons, the deadlift and the squat, mostly because they reinforce your posture. And the posture is one of the most important things
Posterior
for
chain.
fighting. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're doing a takedown, if you're doing a guard pass, if somebody's trying to pull down on you, if you're clinch fighting, all of these things, posture comes into play in a huge way. Now, you don't need to be stronger than your opponent to beat him. Obviously not. This has been proven many, many times. But I'll tell you what, if you're stronger than his weight, that's a big deal.
I agree
You're
with that.
not
That's actually a
stronger
clever
than your
way of
opponent's
saying
weight.
it. 'Cause
Yeah, you're going to have a hard time.
I got a real good one for you, right? I've always been told, people say that weights don't matter. Okay, according to, there's a certain gym, I'm not going to say any names, but it's a Gracie Barra gym or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gym, and they said, like, strength does not matter. I'm not going to do any pressure because they know what I'm about. Strength doesn't matter, right? And I said, well,
I think it does.
if you've got a guy who's, yeah, I know it does, that's what I'm going to get to. If you've got 2 guys of equal ability, the stronger guy wins. If you've got two guys of equal ability and strength, the fitter guy wins. Do you know what I mean? Because then you can just grind it out. And guess what? Being strong with good technique is horrific. I rolled with Hodger Gracie. It was not fun. Like someone once said, the only thing that could move was my eyeballs. Hodger Gracie was not fun. He's also a little porcupine about his weight.
He's a big dude.
I refuse to believe he was lighter than me. He's huge.
He is a big dude. I think specifically because of the early UFCs where they sent Hoist, the smallest of the Gracie brothers, in there to compete. People have this idea that the Gracies are tiny people, but for the most part they're pretty big
Hoist
dudes.
is a big dude. He's 6 foot something. I met him. He's obviously the MMA lad.
He's not tiny. He was simply the smallest of the bunch.
I think he's 6 foot.
And he was up against, these giant, swole dudes like Chemo and Dan Severin, who were much bigger, and so he looks like a small guy by comparison.
Also,
But yeah, people get the wrong idea when they're watching people on a small screen and they think you're 3 inches tall in real life.
Yeah, that's quite common. Like when I meet people for the first time, people are like, "Oh God, you're massive. You're way bigger than I thought you were gonna be." Do you know what I mean? It's like
Same.
TV shrinks people's perspective.
Same experience here.
when people see me for the first time, they're like, "Christ, you're huge. I thought you were gonna be." I'm not huge at all, but I'm a lot bigger than what they thought.
Yeah.
I've done it vice versa. I've seen guys on TV and gone, "God, you'd be good to spar against," and I'm like, "Oh, well, there's no point sparring you." I mean, I just go, flick you around.
It's way different seeing people on a screen than in real life, especially the small screen. Like if you're watching movies, the silver screen, everybody looks bigger in real life because their head's 50 feet tall. But on an iPhone or something like that, if you're watching a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Like, man, I met Fyodor Emelianenko like 3
what was
years
he
ago
like?
at the Dragon. Yeah, he came to Shanghai. He brought a team of Sambo fighters over here for this MMA show. Man, great performances from these guys. And I look up at him, and I'd read his stats that he's like 6 foot, like 2 or 3 or something. I don't remember, but I'm 6'1", so those numbers seem like okay, he's about my size but thicker. And I stand next to him. I'm like, I am dwarfed by this man. He is a large man. Like he doesn't look that big on TV, of course, because he's fighting much bigger guys in Pride, like Hongman Choi. Everybody looks small compared to Hongman Choi.
So does the stadium.
But man, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And unfortunately, it looks like I'm having some technical difficulties on my end. It looks like we're going to have to cut this podcast short. I'm really sorry about that, guys. Please, let's do this again sooner rather than later. And for the folks at home watching this, please go check out Joe and Brad at the Fight Bible. Check out their channel. Give them a subscribe. Awesome guys. Great content. Check out Brad and his pad holding tutorials. Amazing stuff. One of the best I've seen on the internet. And yeah, man. Joe, Brad, love to do it again. Stay in touch, guys. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.